For Creamer Media's Polity, I'm Motshabi Hoaeane. Researcher and analyst Professor Raymond Suttner examines the pervading sense of crisis in South African politics following the Public Protector's findings on the Nkandla report. Professor, in your article you speak of a sense of crisis that pervades South African politics in the wake of the Public Protector's report on Nkandla. The word crisis is also used a lot in South African politics, rather. What do you understand it to mean in this context?
Yes, I think maybe the word crisis is overused, but when one speaks of a crisis, one is referring to a situation where an institution or a person or an organization faces a difficulty whose resolution cannot easily be found. Now, what I'm therefore saying is that in South African politics at the moment, or in South African governance in general, we are seeing a range of crises, not just one crisis, which do not appear to have a solution immediately available. One can turn immediately to the situation where the president was obliged to make a report of a particular type constitutionally following the Public Protector's report. He simply handed in another type of report to the Speaker of Parliament, and he has referred to the need on his part to take account of the Public Protector's report, the report, internal governmental report, and the forthcoming report of the Special Investigation Unit. The Special Investigation Unit report was on their website. They said it was finished, but suddenly now it'll only come out after the elections. Now, what we see here is, on the one hand, the Speaker of Parliament has accepted this report and has not made a comment to the effect that this is not fulfilling the constitutional duty of the President. But the President has taken it upon himself to pick and choose what he will respond to take an internal governmental report and elevate its status to that of one of the Public Protector, to which he is constitutionally obliged to give an answer. So we have, this is one example of a range of actions by the government which are undermining the Constitution. We see it in a number of other spheres. For example, in the law enforcement sphere, where very often prosecutions of people who are seen and are visibly connected to some criminal activity, such as the killing of Hoaeane, the prosecution fails. We've seen situations where the police use violence, where violence should have been a last resort, but it's a very early resort of the police. We've seen situations where policing is selective, where some crimes are committed and the police do not investigate. When people have constantly reported they've gone to the police about X or Y, and they have not even opened a docket. We've seen situations where the police have violated constitutional provisions of people's right to dignity, where they strip a person in public. We've seen a video of a man being stripped in public and being beaten. Now, these are things which we see that action will be taken, but over time, it takes a very long time, and very often the people remain on duty, so that one gets a sense that the right or the capacity to use violence and to commit illegalities of various kinds is not being punished or feeling the full weight of the law. There's another crisis which is not, to my mind, voiced, and the crisis of patriarchy. Now, in the Constitution, the right to gender equality and the right of freedom of sexual orientation are entrenched. Yet, when you want to enforce those rights, has sufficient been done to ensure that people have their rights protected and advanced, because there's a duty in the Constitution to advance these rights? Now, the ANC will say that it has more women in Parliament than just about anywhere else in the world. There's one or two places that have got more. But what we've got to ask ourselves is, what is the institutional culture of political organizations? The DA is much worse. The DA doesn't even try to achieve this. They talk about merit. And when you talk about merit, you need to also ask yourself, what are the conditions under which merit manifests itself? Are there not historic disabilities which black people have had, which need to be taken into account in especially advancing people? But let's take any political organization. If you're going to have people become strategists in an organization, they have to be able to attend meetings and discuss things and debate things. Now, if these meetings are at night, will it be easier for men to attend those meetings than women? Women are assumed still to be the homemakers, the child bearers, the child carers in the home, so that even if women get onto the parliamentary list of an organization, will they have had the opportunities to become the theorists, the strategists in these organizations? If you look at the key strategists of the ANC, the Communist Party, COSATU, you will see that they are almost entirely men. There are women leaders, but they are the exception, and in general, women can flourish to some extent later in their lives when their children have grown up. Now, in the case of men, in the case of young women, they don't have the same opportunities because culturally, very often, they don't have the same, their parents often don't encourage them to have the same educational opportunities, but in political organizations, they don't factor in the fact that patriarchy may be condemned in theory, but patriarchal relationships continue. Also, the institutions, we have to ask ourselves whether the professional mode of conduct in institutions is conducive to gender equality. Now, in the first parliament, they entered what I would call a masculine institution. Frini Jinwala was made the first Speaker of Parliament. In her office, there was a urinal. There were very few toilets for women in Parliament because the Parliament that was inherited was assumed to be an almost entirely male institution. But when that Parliament met, even though there were a lot of women in that Parliament, after lunch, you would see women coming there with shopping bags, because it was assumed that even if the husbands were in Parliament, the people who would have to go home afterwards or early to prepare a meal would be the women. Now, Audre Lorde says, you cannot break down the master's house with the master's tools. So you've got to break down patriarchal structures, institutions, and relationships, whether in politics, whether in the legal profession, whether in academia, whether in the unions. And I don't think we are aware of the fact that there is an element of crisis, because the type of masculinity that patriarchy encourages is one which tends to be a rough, tough masculinity, which may be conducive to violence against women, but also violence against people who are not real men or real women.
In the article, you suggested that with the upcoming elections, the likelihood of those elected with an ANC majority are as unlikely to hold people to account as the existing parliament. You speak of the need to build civic power, including social movements and business. What are the prospects for such a coalition of forces being built?
You know, when I raise something like this, I am talking about something that will take time. And I think it's important that we ask ourselves questions of, if the problems that we face in the country today stretch across a wide range of areas of society, should we not try to draw in all those sections of society? Alternatively, do we fixate on some area of inequality and injustice and build around that? Now, we need to have a much bigger discussion about that, but I believe this is the route that we need to go, is to join people who have not in the past acted together in order to restore the democratic vibrancy that we hoped for in 1994.
Thank you so much, Professor. That was Professor Raymond Suttner on questions of democracy and corruption in the South African political landscape.